everybody. Thank you so much for listening and being here with us. It has been an incredible wet spring. There's been a lot of rain. There has been the swelling of the rivers here, the creeks. Kay and I going to Arkansas, they had so much rain before we got there. I thought, here we go. We haven't been able to be in very many streams or rivers here. And I thought, we're going to go to Arkansas, visit her family, and be able maybe to fish a day on a river and not have to worry about flood. And so it had rained so much there in Arkansas before we got there that Bull Shoals Dam was at flood level. And so they were letting water out. And so the generators were just pumping and going. So we got to fish a few hours, that was well, and then they started generating and the waters come through, and you can tell the evidence of a flood. You can always see where flood waters have been. Kay and I were talking about that and just saying, you know what, when flood waters happen in our life or flooding comes into our life, we always think of a negative connotation. I'm flooded with emotion. I'm flooded with negativity. I'm flooded with problems, with bills. But you know what? We can just flip that thing around and say that we're flooded with joy, flooded with happiness, flooded with blessing. And we ought to show that there is floods of goodness in our life. We're going to have those floods that's going to leave the mud line. But we can also have those floods that puts a smile line on our face. And I was thinking, and we were praying, and I was exactly what to deliver, what to give tonight. And with our current situations, things that are opening, not opening, masks, no masks, economy coming back, not coming back, so much uncertainty. People are dealing with their own floods. I was just meeting with a couple earlier that are really going through some dark, murky floodwaters right now. And it got me thinking, you can't help talking about the flood without talking about the flood with Noah. The ancient world didn't look at water like we look at water. I love water. I absolutely love it. I one of the episodes, I don't know if it's going to be last week or next week. I'm not sure where Tyler's going to put it. But I talk about entomology and the study of insects when you do fly fishing. And I love that. I absolutely enjoy that. In fact, sometimes I think that's exactly what I should have done. I enjoy water so much. I was a lifeguard. Love it. Ancient world didn't necessarily look at water as something that was kind. It was always dark to them. It was sinister to them. It pictured chaos. It pictured darkness, disorder, nothingness, vastness. It was uncertainty. You can kind of look at that with the way water is in the Bible in some places, where the crossing of the Red Sea, and you get these walls of water that can come in on you at any time that God snaps his finger. Or Jonah, the great storm, and out from the dark depths comes the great fish that swallows Jonah. The New Testament, Jesus calming the storm, or walking on stormy waves as he walked on the water there. And so there's this picture and this almost darkness that surrounds water. And we've seen that in our own time, the tsunami. You all will remember that of 2005 in Indonesia. How many lives were lost there? Hurricane Katrina in 2006. Was that surrounding that. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 9 says, "And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so." And so when you think about this, now watch this. When you think about the flood in Noah's day, you think about the depth of God's despair or anger at man during that time, where he had created these waters in one place, and yet they sprung forth. It was almost like the flood became like uncreation. You remember that creation was given to man for him to have domain over and for God to bless him with, and he used it for a blessing. But then all of a sudden the flood comes and there's this turmoil. God brings up his anger. Genesis chapter 6 and verse 6, the Bible says, and it repented the Lord that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him at his heart. We're not going to get into it. There's so many disagreements, arguments, discussions, opinions about what it meant when God repented. But God came to a point to where he felt sorry of the depths that man had fallen, at the decisions that man had made. There wasn't anything good in his heart at all. And so God used uncreation, if you will, used creation against a man, and brought forth his judgment, this dark, this up from, and consumed him and took him. Genesis chapter 8 verse 1, Bible says, and God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. But there was hope. God remembered Noah. In other words, God never gave up on his creation. He was angered. He was remorseful and sorry that he had even made man. Up out of the depths was this water that flooded, and God's judgment was poured out. But then God remembered, wait a minute, my creation. God has expectations of his image bearers. In other words, we bear the image of God. At creation, let us make man in our own image. So we are image bearers of God. And so God's got some pretty big expectations of those who bear his image. And when we sin or do wrong or have make bad decisions, go against the Lord, it grieves him. I don't think it surprises him. I don't think it shocks him. But it does grieve him. Chapter 8 and verse 21 in Genesis, Bible says, and the Lord smelled a sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake. For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. Chapter 9, verse 1. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth. Down to verse 7. And you, be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. So here's what I want you to get from this. I want you to see this. Our actions, when we talk about this flood, when we look at Noah and the flood, we look at God's remorse, God's sorry, God using water to judge, then God remembering, then God restoring, then God blessing, then God saying, go be fruitful. I wrote down 3 things here very quickly. This is what I want to give you. Number 1, our actions can and do cause God pain. Our actions can and do cause God pain. When we make the bad decision, when we're not living for him. But number 2, I want you to remember that God remembers. And God is there for you. Despite our evil, God has a resolve to work with us. He says, I'm going to remember you. I love you. You know, God knew when he created you, you were a man or you were a woman. He knew you come with shortcomings. He knows that there's weaknesses, there's dents and creases in the armor. He knew that. Now, when we make mistakes, does it upset God? Yes. Can it bring floods of judgment? Yes. But does God cast us off forever? No. Just like he remembered Noah, he remembers you. Hey, listen, you're his. You're his child. And then, this is the great news. He gives you a new beginning after the flood. A new beginning is possible with God. Sin is real, but it doesn't define who you are. God defines who you are. So go be fruitful. I love this. I sat and got ready for this, and I thought, man, this is a great, great truth. I'm doing the best I can to lay it down for you, but I want you to see it, and I want you to picture it. Okay, we cross the line. We do something wrong. We sin. It does cause God grief. It does hurt God. Will the waters rise? Absolutely. Can the flood waters come? Yes. But God says, I love you. You're mine. I remember you. And when we turn back to him, God then says, look, forgiven, forgotten, now go be fruitful. God doesn't, because of his grace, give you some free ticket to go do whatever you want to do. No, the flood's going to come. But it's not a flood that's going to drown. He gave that promise to Noah. I'm not going to do this again. I want to be right here with you, and I'm not going to give up on you. You've got that today. So here's the question. Are there areas in your life where you need a fresh start? Are there areas you need a fresh start? What will you do with the fresh start? What will you do with the fresh start? That's a great truth. You've got the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it all is brought together with grace. And that's the Father you have. Thanks for watching.